These are standing, yeah. It's always better when law enforcement
Vacation?
I would be honored.
Okay.
Where is?
JC,
How are you?
I'm amazing. Thank you. Let me go much.
Alexis, another one. You
I'm in traffic.
guys gotta go all the picture today.
I said hi to you. What's up?
Wait. You see.
Alexis, my favorite.
But I want to be.
Oh my God, I flew.
Yeah.
But how about this?
Oh, I have this horrible chair again.
Yes.
Hi, how are you? It's in a week.
That's why I'm such, that's why I'm smiling.
There you go. I
See you
bring that
twice in a
energy.
week.
Thanks for making sure that I ate. That helps. Where's Miss Rolano gonna sit? Is there no sit?
Oh, you have no idea what's.
I'm not in
I
charge.
gotta tell you, I gotta tell you afterwards.
Once Gina gets back, we're gonna go ahead and start.
How are you?
Good, yourself? You good, Javi?
Yeah, when she gets back, we'll start. Okay. We got phone.
Ed, how are you?
I just thought, where Milan, we can wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scott. I can't announce.
No, it's done, it's done. No, you're letting everybody.
Because I think he'll be able to pop up stuff on the Zoom and I could follow. Right now, I've been doing it.
You have to. Take it off. So-
Don, if you can also do the closed caption like you do during the regular council meetings so that we can see it. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful.
We don't have a seat.
I'm looking to see where I am. No,
Gina.
no, nobody I know.
From early.
Nobody cares.
Yes, we do.
Sorry,
We do.
sorry.
Yeah. We'll put that seat outside. From there. That's
We
there.
need to slide one over so we can get.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Where does she go?
She normally goes right over here. Did Tony coming in?
I think he's not, but I'm gonna remove it in case.
If he hasn't said no, then yeah.
You stay
Like-
you're next to him, you're next to. I think.
She normally goes
Maria,
right over here.
between
Really?
Fernandez and Ruan.
I thought,
No,
Fernandez
no,
and-
you're here next to me, but she.
oh, she goes on this side. Okay, okay.
Would never take you away from sitting next to me.
Oh, no, I'm honored. Please, don't ever do that.
Thank you. Can I get that? Ella se sienta al lado tuyo, right?
Yes,
yeah, I
think so. So I agree.
I know you,
I think so.
before next to the chair,
So
protecting
we're
the
just have
chair.
one extra person.
Acuérdate, your duties are to
Pues es
protect the
espíritu.
chair. Así que te puedes acercar.
Game of Thrones.
Estamos como en Game of Thrones.
Ah, I get it. Ay, Lord.
All right.
Gentlemen.
Hey, right. Good afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. Are we going, were we good for the on live? All right. The call to order, Madam Clerk.
Good evening. Commission Member Abad. Commission Member Bennett is absent. Commission Member Fernandez is absent. Commission Member Matos.
Present.
Commission Member Ruano.
Present.
Vice Chairman Inguanzo,
Present.
Chairman Lay Soto.
Present. Thank you.
You have quorum.
Thank you very much. If we can all rise, we'll have a moment of silence by Councilmember J.C. Fernandez.
Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we come before you with gratitude for the opportunity to serve our community. Grant us wisdom in our decisions, clarity in our discussion, and unity in our purpose. Help us to act with integrity, fairness, and compassion, always keeping the well-being of the residents at the forefront. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Pledge of Allegiance, I'll ask our mighty sheriff's officer, Robin, to please lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Going ahead to order of business, deferral, additions, or deletions. Do we have any deferrals, additions, or deletions? All right, I have one. I just want to kind of swap on old business. I've been asked to switch around the town clerk's report from B, and we'll start off with that one under A. It's just a swap, so that's my motion. Is there a second? All right, any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. So it'll be switched out on that. Any other deferrals, additions, or deletions? All right, we'll close that out. Madam Clerk, if you can read the rules regarding public comments.
Yes, good evening. So, public comments will be heard as always at the beginning of each meeting, and everyone for public comments will be afforded 3 minutes to speak. As I always mention, I welcome public comments, remote as well. If you are participating via remote, the only thing you always have to do is raise the reactions icon and raise your hand, and we will allow you to speak. And you can also as well participate live by pressing hashtag number 9 if you wish to speak via phone. I always say, please, let's follow the proper decorum, no clapping, applauding, verbal outburst, and all the questions from the public, including the online participants, shall be directed to the chair of the Charter Revision Commission meetings. Again, if you're here now for public comments and you're in the audience, please just approach the podium and welcome and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Carlos Andres, 14530 Date Pine Ave, Miami Lakes, in our beautiful town. Commissioners, thank you. Thank you for serving on this board and town management. I'm here to discuss a few things. I stay involved in the meetings and see what's going on. I know that there's some things on the agenda that I'm going to be talking about, or better said, they're not on the agenda, but I want you all to please consider them as they come back up and we finalize what's going to go to the ballot. One of them is we've been talking about the runoff and possibly a primary. The mayor presented to the chamber, last year, and I thought the idea he brought up was excellent about pushing the runoff to December to be in line with other municipalities like Hialeah, Miami. I think it makes sense. I don't like the idea personally of doing a primary and getting rid of a candidate in August. I rather have all the focus go in November, and if there is a runoff, you just push it to the proper time when everybody comes back from vacation. The other one that I asked, please, a commission member that voted to reduce our seats in the council from 7 to 5, I ask you to please reconsider, and this is why. We have a lot of good people that serve on this council, and we've been, 25 years as a municipality. We've had lawyers, accountants, realtors, volunteers, veterans, people that really just do very well for the community. And I really feel that as a taxpayer, paying somebody $22,000, whatever it is, for that one member to be on the council is immaterial, as we like to call in the audit world. When you consider the amount of time they put into that seat, all the hours, I mean, it's literally like $22,000 is nothing, because they're giving their years of experience, their passion for our town. I just don't see why it would make sense when it comes to money. Also, highly consider the seats in the committees, all the free labor that you get from the committee members for those folks. I know there's been some, conversation about, okay, well, there is no interest. I disagree. If there was an interest for this town, we wouldn't have 84 committee members, right? That's 84, discounting 7 per committee. There's committees that have more than 1 member per council member. So I'm sure that if there is no interest, trust me, there'll be a committee member that's going to put their hat in the ring. All right. You just give it enough time, they'll do it. Most of the people that are on the council right now have served on a committee. So I ask you again to strongly consider that. And not to mention, everybody is just very important. Look, a click is much harder to have at 7 than at 5. I don't care what anybody says. It's a lot harder at 7. And again, people bring different experiences. It's good for us as a resident. Someone might be passionate and very good about lobbying in Tallahassee. Well, guess what? I want that person representing me. We might have someone that's not, and then you're stuck at 5. So please just consider bringing this back. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Participants online, I only see the board members. But again, I feel the duty to just make sure if someone is participating online for public comments, this is your moment to unmute yourself. And we welcome public participation. But again, Chair, I don't see anyone in the screen for participation on public comments.
Well, thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and we will close public comments for today. Next, we're going to go on to number 6, approval of minutes. Council commission members, we had was attached on your agenda was the March 12, 2026 Charter Revision Commission minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. Is all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Now we're going to go on to number 7, old business. And we changed, we have the town clerk starting off. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all board members for making the change. My report is going to be short and simple, but last time that we met was March 12th, and I gave a short report, and I stated for the record that we were pending some information from the Elections Department that I had requested via public records request. I got the information, and basically the information that was pending was to get some information about voter turnout. I was asked to provide some statistics analysis so that you can understand the difference between the total number of ballots cast in August primary versus the runoff. So let me provide, it's very simple. Let me go slowly with the facts. The primary election was held on August 20th, 2024. The total votes was 4,935. Then in November 5th, 2024, the official general election, the town of Miami Lakes, I'm looking at the race of the mayor. We had 15,708 votes. And then 21 days later, per the town charter, was our official runoff election, held November 26, 2024. And the total votes were 3,994. So I wanted to provide that to all of you so that you can, have the facts, analyze the statistics and the data. As well, I think I was asked, or at least I looked into the elections calendar, the supervisor of election, which is in their website. And I was trying to see how many municipalities are now having election this year, how many participate in the November 3rd general election like Miami Lakes versus how many other municipalities, if any other municipality participates in the primary. right? Because that is one of the proposals that you all have to vote soon. So the primary election this year is August 18th. And I see that the municipality of Key Biscayne is participating, as well as Miami Gardens. I just analyzed a little bit more of the information. Miami Gardens, to the best of my knowledge, and I'm thinking that Mr. Coviela, Attorney Coviela, will probably speak more on this regard, but from the facts of the calendar of the supervisor of election, Miami Gardens apparently does have primary elections for, just like what we're proposing for you to consider. And if, for more than whenever they have two or more candidates for one position, they do that in the primary election. And from what I see here, Miami Gardens does have a runoff election, but in November 3rd. So that would be like when we are having our general election, Miami Gardens is having their runoff. That is one municipality that we can see. We also understand that Key Biscayne municipality, again, based on what we see in the calendar, is participating in the primary election. When we looked at Municode and we went to their town charter, it is our understanding that whenever they have a mayoral race, apparently they do it in the primary election if they have more than two candidates. And they participate in the general election in November 3rd. That would be like the runoff. But those are the only two municipalities that I can share with you all that are participating in a primary election from what we understood from reading their town charter. All the other municipalities, and we have 34, the vast majority are on November 3rd, and then they have a runoff, just like what we do. We have it 21 days later, which this year would be November 24th. We have it with one other municipality. The majority have it the first week of December or the second week of December. So just to summarize, the vast majority of the municipalities do have their election in the November 3rd. And if they need a runoff, they have it after like we do, but they have it weeks later, not the week of Thanksgiving. And as I stated at the beginning, from what we were able to analyze, two municipalities do have primary elections. And in case they have a runoff, they have it in November 3rd.
Mhm.
Any questions on what I stated?
Councilman, commissioners, any questions? Okay. Madam Clerk, also did you have the numbers on how much the
Oh,
finances,
yes.
the
Thank
cost of those elections?
Yes, I don't think that was asked, but that is a very important question. Our finance department was able to give me some numbers. In the official general election held November 5th, 2024, which we just had, the cost was $2,504 because of course we piggyback. It was a presidential election and the cost was low. However, 21 days later, for the runoff election held November 26th, because it's a standalone election or what we call special election, the cost was $50,000.
And to be clear, you said that in the November election of 2024, there was 15,708 voters.
Correct.
And it cost us $2,500.
Yes.
Approximately. And then in the runoff election, only 39, almost 4,000 votes, but it cost us $50,000.
Correct. And let me just add to that, that the runoff elections of November 26th, we had no early voting, which, if I am not mistaken, back in maybe 12 or another election that we had, the year that Mayor Pizzi and Mayor Sid, were having a runoff, we had early voting, because we like to do that. We like to provide the early voting. That would be more money.
No.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
So
But in this one that I gave you for 50,000, that's without early voting.
without early voting. Okay. All right, any commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the clerk, if we were to participate in a primary, would the cost be similar to that of the general election because we're piggybacking on an election that's already going to take place?
I like to always, and that's a great question, I always like to talk with facts. I did not ask that. I'm assuming, but I don't like to assume, that it would be similar to the cost that we had for the November 5th, because we're piggybacking from the county elections, but I don't know. If you allow me, I will look for that information. I will ask, but I'm assuming that it would be something similar to the 2,500 because we're piggybacking. That's a benefit.
Commissioner Matos, did you guys see your hand up? Okay. Any other commissioners, any more questions on the clerk's reports? Okay, anything else for us, Madam Clerk?
No, if you have any other questions, always feel free to email me. I don't mind asking and, I like doing this.
Yeah.
This is beneficial for all of us, but no, nothing more to report. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. This was very helpful in better understanding this and in focusing us in our decision-making here. So next, we're going to move over to the town attorney report. I want to say is what I'd like to have is the town attorney, when you go through your report, if we can go through each of the sections and to the extent that, if anyone wants to make any motions on any type of language, we can do so at this time, or if not, commissioners, is just as what I would ask is that you take it into consideration and you propose something, submit it for the next meeting so we can address it at the next meeting based on these responses from the town attorney. Obviously, I know that we're just getting them now and we're being able to discuss it. So I'm not necessarily expecting you to come up with an answer right now if you guys want to propose a motion based on what he responds, but please listen intently. I know he's taken a lot of time together with his office in order to get us pretty full answers with this. So, Mr. Town Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All of you have before you a legal memorandum that we provided that goes through the outstanding questions and gives a little bit of history as to the origin of that question. And we've done our best to be able to answer it. Before I begin, I really do want to give special thanks to Morelos Castilla, who's here with us. She did a lot of the heavy lifting in putting this together. I also want to give thanks to the chair. We met several Sundays ago to go through this and kind of brush it up a bit as far as what was missing and then finalize it recently. So yes, as the chair has said, we've spent some significant amount of time in trying to put this together and to answer your questions and help you make your decision. So I'll start with item number 1, obsolete and post-incorporation language through the charter. And as I go through this, I'm not gonna go read everything that's there. That's why it's there for you to read at your own leisure, but I'll give you more or less a summary. So with regards to obsolete or post-incorporation language, it is typical that in many instruments, U.S. Constitution, for instance, will have language that is completely obsolete, completely sometimes even illegal, but nevertheless, it remains there, and it's important as it has historical context as to how it's gone on and changed. So these are instruments that the Charter, as the Florida Constitution, as the U.S. Constitution, are not supposed to be easily changed. And many times this language that may exist there, even though it may be obsolete or outdated, I believe for historical context, it should remain. So that is my recommendation to all of you. As I finish each item, I'm going to open the floor in case you have any questions, if that's okay, Mr. Chair, so that we can just go through them and I can make any changes or answer any additional questions in the future that you may have.
All right, that first item 1, is there any further discussion, questions, comments, commissioners? All right, next we'll go forward.
Okay, the next one is the definition of a full term for term limit purposes. And for this one, we did provide, and you'll see in blue, the proposed sample language. This was something that was requested back on January 22nd. And so the proposed sample language, as you see there, it says, for purposes of this article, a term shall mean a 4-year term to which a person was elected. Service in office pursuant to an appointment to fill a vacancy shall not constitute a term.
provided, however, that if a person appointed to fill a vacancy serves more than 2 years of an unexpired term, such service shall be deemed a term for purposes of this section. Term served as a council member and term served as a mayor shall be counted separately and independently. The next steps, if you are find this satisfactory, is to finalize and codify that full term section 2.3G consistent, draft a comprehensive term limit language for 2.3E, incorporating the two-term life limit and the two-term lifetime limit and appointed service threshold, and a separate counting for the mayor and council member. And draft this retroactively for any previously served terms, count towards the limit of this adoption. Those are the three things. So one of the things that we did discuss is that the term limit would be 2 terms within one life. So after somebody has served 2 terms, they can't serve any additional term in that particular office.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussions?
No, but I do would like to say, I do like the wording of it, but I guess we're not moving to approve anything now. We're gonna wait until the whole.
If you have something you'd like to move to approve today, yes, we can move forward. If you want to take some time and make sure that we've, the language is how you want it to do it, we can, we can wait until the next meeting. But obviously there is the proposed language here. And, as I think as noted in the bullet points here, it's talking about, the retroactivity of how it's going to do. It's not in this proposed language.
It's not in the proposed language. We would draft that as far as the
Subsequently,
retroactivity
right.
subsequently.
So, and I only mentioned that because maybe we might want to consider all that together rather
Yeah.
than trying to take motion now. But if you have
Right.
something you'd like to take
Who
now,
wants
it's
to
fine.
provide it? I'm fine with that.
Those are the things that those are the few things that I think that you should take into consideration is, and although you've already kind of given me that direction, but keep in mind that the direction of that this board has provided is that these term limits are meant to provide for the lifetime of the candidate, of the person, and also the retroactive application. And so what we will do is by next meeting is we will work on more concrete language. So you will see the red line version in the actual charter itself.
All right. Any other discussion, any other direction you'd like to have for the town attorney as he moves forward with his drafting of this language? Commissioners, nothing? Okay, all right, that covers item number 2.
Right, so the next one, item number 3, is really something that would be a very simple ballot question. I think it's useful and being one that I've dealt with in another municipality, recent litigation with regards to what is a council member or a vice mayor or a mayor as defined in the charter and what rights that person may have. I think it's good to have consistency and clear definition as to what is a council member, what is a mayor, and what is a vice mayor. So what we would be doing is, again, as it says in the legal finding recommendation, where provision is intended only to apply to one of the 6 at-large elected members, that's a council member. Where is intended to apply to all council members, including the mayor, then it'll be a member of the council. And where provision accounts to a vote for quorum, it will be mayor and use of the council. So mayor and council. And that would be the recommendation is we'll go ahead and when you see it the next time, it'll be a red line version of all the sections where these terms are mentioned in the charter and cleaned up for consistency.
All right. Thank you. Commission members, any further discussion, questions, comments, or further direction for the town attorney? All right, seeing none. Thank you. Let's go on to your next item.
The next item are election days, and I think we just discussed this a little bit, primary versus runoff system. And what I've done for you is, and I think the town clerk pretty much gave you a very good analysis. I did a separate analysis, and you'll see it there where I've gone municipality by municipality. The only one, as she alluded to, is the city of, or the village of Key Biscayne, that theirs is a hybrid system. Other than that, all the other municipalities do provide for a runoff. The village of Key Biscayne, when it comes to the mayor, does provide for an early August election and also the city of Miami Gardens. Other than those two, all of the other cities, as you'll see there, provide for either an April, March, or November election. Although I do see the trend moving more towards November, and I think that, and this is just my personal opinion, I'm kind of going off the reservation here a little bit, but the fact that there is definitely an economic advantage to having it in August and November does make sense, regardless of the fact that other cities perhaps just haven't caught on, you know, so.
All right, any discussions or comments? Sure. Councilman Fernandez.
I mean, just the fact, I mean, everybody could do the math, but the difference of what we would save, or, you know, $40-something thousand, that's a lot of flowers or mulch. And that's a joke, but.
Well, in the reality, it would also be a lot more of those Aiden life rings, you know, which are starting to populate the town, and we're going, those cost a couple, $200 each. And, you know, with 50,000, extra $47,000. And I did a quick calculation, you know, the 50,000 for only about 4,000 residents came out to be about $12.60 per voter, versus the 50, you know, the bigger election where there was, cost us 2,000 for almost over 15,000 voters, almost 16,000, came out to almost 16 cents per voter. So just from that aspect, it to me, it's a no-brainer. Mr. Manager.
Yeah, you should really, the figure that the clerk provided is you should keep in perspective the fact that with that runoff for the mayors, the council elected not to have early voting. In other years, they've elected to just do a week of voting or modified early voting. Sometimes they do a full 2 weeks of early voting, similar to the November election. So if you do a regular, for a runoff election, a regular 2-week early voting, or at least a week, it's going to be significantly more. And I think that we're probably, the real number should be somewhere in the $70,000, $80,000
Yeah.
range
I wouldn't.
with early voting.
Yeah. And I don't disagree in one bit. And even in taking that is that the November vote had early voting, and that included it. That had that early voting period for $2,500. You know, that was included. That just to me is just, I think it's simple, and also the numbers show it. I think the numbers support it. You know, even in the primary, the runoff, without having a municipal type of election, we still had more than what we received at the runoff election.
Yeah,
You know, attendance.
and remember, if none of the races draw 3 or more candidates, there'd be nobody on the August ballot, and you wouldn't have any expense. It would all be on the November ballot.
Correct. Yes. And one other just kind of discussion I wanted to have with my commissioners on that topic is, because in listening to what, you know, during public comments today, as well as kind of made me think a little bit about how we are, you know, how we propose this language and how we're going to have the direction for the town attorney, is I'd like to think, or first I'll talk to you guys and see what your thoughts are on, because I think there's 2 ways we can run with the primary. What I had looked at is, one is whether we just have if there's going to be more than 2 electors or going to go onto the primary ballot in the primary election in August, is whether or not that'll be determinative, meaning that in the event that one of them meets the 50% or more, is that the winner, or are we simply or should we draft into it that the top 2, no matter what they get, are going to go into the November? My preference, and I'll say it, you know, just to start off with, I think it's probably better to have the top 2 nonetheless go from primary, then move it to the November election, because that's the general election. That's when we're going to have a bulk of our voters going to come out, and have them go to head regardless of how many votes they get, rather than having it decided potentially at the August one. Because nonetheless, we're still going to be going forward with somebody over in the November, if they're challenged, obviously. So I'd like to hear from, you know, the other commission, if you guys have any thoughts on that.
I agree.
Go ahead, Councilman Fernandez.
I agree with you that the top 2 should go, whether or not they received the above the threshold of 50%. Yeah, that's my
Okay.
opinion.
So I tend to look at it differently though. So I'm trying to picture this. So there's 2, 3, 4 candidates. One gets over 50%. Why have a second round and at the extra cost? The majority of the voters they all had the same opportunity to come and vote early, late, November, whenever. So why are we trying to add another round of an election?
Sure. So what I was proposing, and my thoughts at least initially is, it's not that we're adding, is that there's already going to be additional elections anyways. It's going to, because we would go from our primary election is going to be when there's more than two, meaning that there's going to be three or more people that are going to be running. So if there's going to be three of them, the top two simply would going to go to the November election. That's going to happen anyways, because there's going to be another ballot going on. So it's not like we're adding on a whole nother election or anything. There's already going to be that election happening in November. But rather at that November election, even these numbers here, you're going from, almost 4,000, almost 5,000 voters, you're going up, tripling it to over 15,000 voters that are going to be able to make that decision in the November. That just happens historically across the board for all types of elections. You're always going to get more at the November general election than you're always going to get at the August. But as we see here, it's definitely going to be more than the runoff that the system may have, and just economically, the runoff just doesn't matter for me. But I see your point of from what I'm understanding is, why are we, if someone gets the 50% threshold in August, you're saying why force them to go to a November election?
These are nonpartisan elections, so we're all going to run together, one pool of candidates. Whoever got 50%, isn't that how traditionally it's done in other places? I mean, that's how I thought elections were run.
Yeah, I think there was a split. I had looked at it and I don't remember the municipality, but I know there was at least one of the municipalities that has at least their initial primary election, and they just take the top two vote getters, get moved to the general election. So, but I think there's two options. And look, I don't think there'd be anything wrong, if Mr. Town Attorney, if you could have two different types of languages, proposing that aspect of it, of where it's a 50% plus or more, or I guess we'd have to have that language distinguishing what the threshold is going to be.
It always has to be.
For
more
the
than 50.
primary.
It always has to be more than 50%.
Okay,
So
yeah.
Plus one.
Well, I think some of them have the majority, right?
Some
you
have, but yeah, some have just simple majority and some have 50 plus one. I believe charter was changed to 50 plus one after the 2013 election.
Yeah.
I know that because I didn't get the 50 plus one and lost. I didn't get the majority by 100 votes. So.
Well, this is your opportunity to change that.
Yeah.
No, yeah, so if you could have that to where in the primary, have one of them where it's the top two vote getters regardless of the percentage, will carry forward to November, but then having a language that has that other option, so that way we can all consider that as well, that has if any one candidate achieves 50% plus one at the primary, that they'll be deemed the winner of the election.
Okay, but in all cases, in all instances, there is a primary.
When there's in the instances when there is going to be more than two.
Right, no, so here's my question. Let's say you have, right, where you're gonna have more
Yeah,
than two.
if there's going to be more than two. If there's only two, then it goes to November. And if there's only one, then they doesn't even need to go on the ballot.
Understood. Perfect.
Mr. Manager.
Yeah, it actually is a really good point that you make, because some people will argue that why should we considering the numbers that Gina threw out, why should we let 5,000 people decide a ballot as opposed to 15,000? So this solves that, because even if 5,000 people say of the three candidates, this is the top guy, but these are the top two, they're still going to get the exposure to the 15,000 voters in November. And then that kind of, solves that argument. So I think it's a great point.
So, but I think having the both options so that we can see it when it's written out. I think it'll be very good for the full commission to take a look at it. So we can decide how we would want to have that type of language.
Okay.
All right. Yes,
Chair, I've got
Mr.
a
Vice
couple
Chair.
of questions, just clarification. So if we were to have candidates on the August ballot, the certification or the qualifying happens in early August, right? So you would have to move that in order for them to appear on the ballot?
Yeah, qualification would have to change.
What's that?
Qualification would have to change.
Okay, no, I'm,
Well, isn't qualification still happen in June?
no, it's August.
No, not for the town. Currently, it's the last week of July, first week of August. But I was looking into that when I was providing the information and doing the research to set the example of Miami Gardens that he stated and Key Biscayne. The qualifying is much earlier in order for their candidates to be able to make it right. It's like 3-4 weeks earlier. We will work on that.
Yeah. You have
It
to meet
will
the
have to
deadlines
happen.
for the supervisor elections in order to get the names on the ballot. Right. Okay. Other question. The August election, we all keep calling it primary, but that's very confusing to me because first of all, the presidential primary is in March, right? There are primaries in August, but that's not the only thing on the ballot. I'm looking at the 24 ballot here. And you have county elections, you have school board elections, you have, you know, a lot of other elections. So it's not just a
Judicial.
primary election that takes place in August. But my question is there always an election at the county level in August? So the mayor's every 4 years, the county commissioners every 4 years, the school board members every 4 years, right? But they're not always at the same
staggered.
time, so
They're all
they're staggered.
And the
But-
judicial elections.
Yep.
And judicial. So that's my question is there's always going to be an
Yes.
election for some other office in August, in addition to whatever primary may be taking place for Senate or House
Partisan,
or,
yeah, for the
yeah,
partisan election.
right. But that's, we can confirm that there's always other elections taking place for other
Definitely, there's always judiciary
judiciary
Yeah,
and
for sure.
possibly county mayor and possibly county commission
and possibly school
county
board.
school board.
Yeah, the way that they're all staggered, they're always gonna run into one another.
Okay.
Vice Chairman Iguanson, I just wanted to clarify, it is a little bit confusing, but we call it like that because that's how the supervisor of
They
elections
call that?
of
Okay.
Miami-Dade County, I'm reading,
Okay.
they say that this, I'm reading from them, from their website, August 18th, primary election, and then they cite the municipalities that are having candidates. So that's why we refer, and then the November 3rd, 2026 election, they call it the general election.
Right. Okay.
We call it general election or special election. If we have this year, the town of Miami Lakes is going to have the general election and special election because you're going to have amendments,
Right.
proposed amendments to the charter.
So on that point, I guess the March one, they call it presidential primary. So you got presidential primary, primary election, and general election. Okay.
Correct. And remember, the presidential primary runs a little differently because that's more on, those are just on the
Party
party, it's
oriented,
by party
yeah.
line. And I'll say, I know that this discussion has occurred on the legal side with regards to judges, because people have always said is like, all the judges are always placed into
August.
November, in August, I'm
Okay.
sorry. And the November is only used for runoff.
Okay.
That
Oh,
only happens
interesting.
when there's a
Okay.
runoff.
right.
So
So that's
even
good
if there's only 2 judges that are running, they're going in August for a vote. And people have always said, why are we pushing them into August when, they're very critical and, so there's
Sure.
been a lot of debate there as well.
Yeah. Interesting.
But that's why, like,
So being that that's your area of expertise, right, the judges. So if there's 3 judges and one gets over 50%, do they still have a runoff?
no, because they don't. They only do it if if not one gets over 50%. And that's why I said, that's why I want to have that language that we can have it. But then that argument comes up is like, why are we pushing the judges into the November when there's the larger turnout countywide regarding this? Because you'll see it's a big difference in the number even countywide of how many people turn out to voting. But look, I want to see both votes. I want to see both types of language in that aspects. Yes.
Just as a food for thought, more voters doesn't always necessarily equal a good thing. Because when we have these elections, especially when we have presidential elections, there's a lot of voters that are there for that one purpose. And sometimes they'll end up checking off other things on the ballot, having absolutely no idea of what they're doing. So, and I know that we want, obviously, when we do the math, we want to get more voters out there. We want to see more participation. But I've been at the election site and I've talked to voters that are absolutely clueless that anyone that is standing there that gives them one little piece of paper will grab their vote just because they like your last name or just because you smiled at them nicely or whatnot, but they're not informed voters. So it's just food for thought. I'm not saying that I'll vote one way or another, but just keep that in mind because sometimes these smaller elections, like our runoff election where everyone that is going there is going specifically to vote for the mayor of their town, they're going there with a purpose and they are all extremely informed and it may be more valuable than the 14,000 that were there to vote, you know, for the president.
Great point.
Because it's specific,
Good.
right, for those people. So it isn't just a matter of coming out to vote for one person.
Is your microphone on?
It,
Oh, okay. Sorry, the clerk was looking at me.
Mr. Chair, on that point, Madam Clerk, do you have the statistics for the previous mayor's election? Because that is a good point that Commissioner Rona raised. The November 3rd of 24 election was a presidential election, so you had 15,000 people voting, you know, so many of those perhaps only came out for the president and then also voted for the mayor. But do you have well, I guess, is our election for mayor always on a presidential election? It's every 4 years, right? So, oh, okay, all right.
I can provide, I don't have it
No,
with me.
No, it's okay.
But I can get that information.
No, I answered my own question. We elect our mayor
Together. with the
every
president.
presidential election,
Yeah.
every 4 years. So in 24, the last one was 20, the last one was 16, the last one was 12. So, okay, so it's always going to draw out a large number of voters for that election.
But look, it's one thing that I always advocate for amongst my friends and, you know, people that are around me is trying to educate people. I've always told people, I'm not going to get into their politics or what they feel. I always tell people is just go out. Don't just put something out don't check a box just because you want to check a box. Check a box because you've looked into it. I personally put out a lot of information on my social media for my friends and colleagues for them to take a look at and to read up on before you make a vote. You know, I strongly believe in having informed voters are going to be, so I agree with you 100% on that aspect of it. You know, numbers don't always mean it, but I think it does make a difference to an extent. So people feel more, hey, look, you know, I participated. Hopefully, you know, as we see is a lot of people get more invigorated with elections when they start seeing things actually happening to them, whether good or bad, you know. And so to that extent, it can be good, but I also want people that just get out there and vote. I think it's very important. It's a civic duty. It's an opportunity that we have that many across the world that never have had that opportunity to actually have a real election and make a difference. So no, but I think that's going to be great. And, you know, looking forward to the language from the attorney on this information on item 4. Do we have any other questions, discussions on item 4? All right, seeing none, Mr. Town Attorney, we'll move to item number 5.
The next item on here is item number 5, the recall petition. So you asked us to look into this, and I believe that it was with concern that Miami-Dade County provides for 3%, usually as provided by statute 10361. And again, can be changed, but for populations of 500 or more, the petition must be signed by 15% of the total number of registered voters. So Miami-Dade Home Rule Charter does provide for something less, but really Florida statute. And as we know, Miami-Dade Home Rule Charter can kind of override in some instances a statute. But in this case, we should follow 100.361, and it should be 15%. And it makes sense. 3% would be a very small number of electors that would have that power to be able to initiate a recall, given our population size. So open to any questions you may have on that.
Yes, Commissioner Butts.
But haven't we discussed that 10% before? Isn't that what we have right now? 10%?
I'd have to go back and check to see. 10%? 10%. If it is 10%, then my suggestion would be to change it to 15%. Just putting it out there. And I think the more the better.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
If it is 10%, my suggestion would be to change it to 15%.
and the total number of voters registered?
It is at 10%. I've confirmed that. My suggestion would then to be change it to 15%.
Right, but the total number of registered voters at this point in time?
Yes. I would change it to 15%.
I understand that part, but how many total registered voters do
Madam
we have
Clerk.
in the
I
municipal?
do not have that number.
Madam Clerk?
We have, I think I read an hour ago, 21,000.
So state statute,
30
they
to
said
50.
requires a minimum of 15%?
Yes.
All right. And we currently have it at 10%.
Mhm.
So just doing rough numbers, let's see.
I mean, always, let me go back to what I said. Miami-Dade County Charter can always change things. Sorry, guys, I'm getting tongue-tied. It's been a very long day. Miami-Dade County Charter sometimes has provisions in it that are different than what are applied to other counties or other municipalities as provided by state statute, especially when it's a not a general law, but it's a special law. But however, municipalities can always be more restrictive than what is provided by statute. So at 10%, it's more restrictive. At 3%, it's more restrictive. We cannot go to 20% or 25%. That would not be allowed and we'd be preempted by state statute. So we could keep it at 10%, but my suggestion is always, if we're allowed to be 15%, I think that's a better scenario for a town of our size. That's just my suggestion.
All right. And just number wise, rough numbers, obviously doing based on the estimate of about 21,000 registered voters,
It'll
that'd be 2,100 versus 3,150.
Correct.
And that obviously rough numbers.
Right.
Not exact numbers, just to get the idea for the commission members. And sorry, and that's section 2.7 that we currently have that in?
Yes.
All right, is there any other questions now for the town attorney, discussions from the commissioners? I'm going to go ahead, based on what we've heard here, I think this is a simple one that we can make for 2.7. I'm going to make a motion to adjust 2.7 from the 10% to the statutory number of 15%. Yes, and that'll be to change it from 10% to 15% in section 2.7 recall. Is there a second?
I'll second.
For discussion. All right, we have a second. Discussion items. Mr. Vice Chair.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to be clear because I know we had asked this question earlier, and I think it's the first item that you addressed on the, obsolete language. But so, Mr. Town Attorney, so the 15% is the state required?
Yes. For state offices. So if
So
it
that
applies for
would-
state offices, it would apply to municipal.
For state office. Okay. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it would trump whatever it is that we have.
Correct. I would not suggest that we go greater than 15% because we could be challenged on that. But less than 15%, 15% or less is fine. It's more restrictive.
And it's an interesting correlation based on the number of voters that have come out. When you figure the 15% is more in line with what some of the activity has been in some of those elections, with the number of people that have come out,
On the runoffs and
right? Then
primaries.
at 10%, 15% is,
Right.
in my,
Well, 3,150 is in line with, in either of them, on both of them, because we had 3,900 and 4,900, at least in the 2024 election. Yes. Yes. Commissioner Ruano?
Yes, thank you. And I may not have been here when this was discussed originally. This is for a petition to potentially recall someone. So I don't know why we would want to raise that number to make it more difficult. I think that considering the amount of voters that come out in an election, it would be, I guess, unreasonable to think that you would need that same amount of signatures to petition for a recall that will then have its own election, because it's just a petition. It's not like it automatically removes anyone from office. So I feel that 10% is reasonable, and regardless of how much the voter roll increases, it's still the same percentage, right? So I feel that 15 is perhaps a little bit high, considering that someone has to go out and gather all of these signatures. It's not the same as an election. It's more of a grassroots effort to, if it were ever to happen, and it's never happened in Miami Lakes, but if it were ever to happen, I would rather leave the number at a more reasonable amount than continue to raise it, because it's almost like making these petitions impossible.
Understood.
So I tend to agree with Mr. Ruano on this issue in the sense that we're talking about 15% of the total registered voters. We know clearly that's not the total of engaged voters, right? That are going to come out and vote. My other concern in actually even voting for it is that we have an item under new business proposed by Commissioner Bennett, I know he's not here, that addresses that issue. So we haven't discussed that other item, but we're wanting to make a vote on the language now. You know what I'm saying? So I'd rather first make sure we go through that item. If you want to vote on it, we'll vote on it, but I mean, I think we should consider that before we take a vote on changing the language.
Mr. Chair, I'm so sorry, I've got
Go
to
ahead.
follow up.
Vice Chair.
So the county is at 3%, right, Mr. Attorney?
Yes.
All right. And then I just want to be clear, because your first bullet under legal findings says that the statutes, that govern this provision states that a recall petition must be signed by 15%. So I just want to be clear, must or at least by?
I can go back to the statute, but it'd probably say at least by. But let me double check that for you.
Yeah, because if it's must be signed by 15% of the total number of registered voters, then don't we have to comply with whatever the state says, and it has to be 15%?
Well, this is for, so two things. One, this is for state officers, not for municipal. But again, the statute is I would want to be in line with what the state applies to
Sure.
its own
No, I
officers.
agree.
That's,
I guess what's confusing me about that first bullet, it says that this is for municipal officers.
Yeah, in your first line. That's how I understand.
Florida statutes governs the recall of municipal officers. For municipalities with population of 500 or more, which is the town of Miami Lakes, a recall petition must be signed by 50% of the total number of registered voters.
let me double check that for you.
Right. Because if that's what it says, then I think, I mean, you would guide us, but I think that that's what we would have to do.
I would agree.
All right. Which is probably not the case, because if the county's at 3%, then
Yeah, but the county's not a municipality.
True. Yeah.
This section is for municipal recall.
yeah, okay.
So just,
So this is for municipal elections,
Yes.
no.
and it says in a municipality or district of 25,000 or more registered voters, which is the case of, we're at what, 21, so we're less. So in a municipality of 10,000, but fewer than 25,000 registered electors, the petition must be signed by at least 1,000 or 10% of the total number of registered electors.
Okay.
So 10%.
So where we are is in line with what the statute.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for
Sorry
the
about that.
clarification.
Right.
No,
No, with that
understood.
clarification, yeah, that changes. Because and that was the purpose why I was doing, because as I was reading the memorandum,
Yeah.
I understood it that the 15 was also the must. That was
Right.
what I was proposing. But I'm glad we took a look at this. Yeah. Like Commissioner Ruano is like, you need to give up that CPA and just start getting in the legislative piece.
10%.
All right. Any further discussion? I will say is, before I vote is I'm going to be voting, against my motion, given this new information with regards that it is in line now with the statute. Any other discussion item from anyone else? All right, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, say aye. All against, say nay.
Nay.
The nays have it. The motion fails.
So to be clear, Mr. Chair, the provision remains status quo.
That's
It's a status
correct.
quo provision. Okay.
Against himself.
It's not the first time and the last time that I'll vote against myself. I don't want to know, not on the dice, not on the record.
You did it just for discussion purposes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but no, honestly, it was a good discussion to have and we were able to take a look at it. And look, I'm not one to say that I'm always right in making my motions, and I'm willing to take the hits. It
And
is what it is.
I'm gonna
Yes,
go
Mr.
back on what I
Lieutenant.
said though. Wait, because I'm thinking about this. So if the statute, okay, and we're taking a hard look at this, right? If the statute says that municipalities are between 10,000 but fewer than 25,000 is 10%, but in municipalities or districts of 25,000, it has to be signed, it has, by, says, the petition shall be signed by at least 1,000 or 5% of the total numbers, whichever is greater. So here's my thoughts on this. Since we're not going to have another charter review commission for another 10 years, we're at how many? 21,000.
As of
Voters.
the official runoff election of November 26, 2024, what I have here is registered voters, 21,093. That's
You're,
the last election we had,
you're
I think I know
3,000.
where you're going.
perhaps more.
Exactly, and we may have others that may increase and push that number. So perhaps, and I can come back to you with some language that just clarifies that it's, a minimum of, but not, something that aligns the charter to the statute.
Yeah.
If you're okay with that.
Yes, and I think what I was gonna, now you're saying that is maybe even taking out a percentage amount, but rather referring to the statute
It's
Yes.
fine.
and deferring to the statute as to what the amount is.
Right, that would align it.
Correct, because then we have the two aspects of it, where it's going to be either the 1,000 or, the 10%, depending on what it's going to be.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So-
if you
so-
can get some language that you could propose to us for the next meeting.
Absolutely, because if we don't do that, then we're creating a situation where our charter would be illegal.
Inconsistent with the statutes.
Yeah.
And then we'd have to do a petition. No, so proposal for language to align with state, to have it to align with state statute.
So I'm glad we had this discussion.
See, look at that. See, there was a
Okay.
purpose for my motion. I have to get the win somewhere.
All right.
All right,
The-
anything else on item 5? From the commissioners, Mr. Town Attorney, anything else on 5?
No.
All right, let's go to item 6.
Item 6 is interference with administration. This is section 4.2B1. There was proposed sample language that we placed here. And basically there was some inconsistency with regards to all town employees. And currently the assistant to the town manager, to the town mayor, is an employee of the town. However, he is not directed by the town manager, but rather by the town mayor. So the proposed language kind of just, brushes, that part off.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yep.
Mr. Manager.
My only concern, and I agree completely that the carve out for the two individuals that work for, one for the mayor, one for the council, I have no issues with that. The one thing is the second bullet under legal finding and recommendations, I disagree wholeheartedly with that. I don't find it to be unnecessary procedural hurdle. I think it has worked well for it not to have a single individual member of the council go rogue and start conducting investigations, where it should be as a result of the entire council considering if the situation and thinking that an investigation is appropriate. And I think that language should remain in the language, or in the charter.
Okay. Mr. Town Attorney, can you expand upon why that you had that recommendation of that removal? Because I could see some instances where I may want to do it, but I just want to hear from you first before I delve into it.
So your concern is the phrase "in accordance with a resolution adopted by a town council"
To have
creates
that removed.
unnecessary procedure?
Correct, because for instance, if it says, except for the purpose of inquiries and investigations, so any member of the council can say, oh no, I was just inquiring from a town employee and I have the right because it's an inquiry and it's just an individual going and making those inquiries. And my biggest concern is accountability, right? And I've always made this point to the members of the council that I have worked with since I started, which is if they go directly to a member of my staff and I'm not even aware of it, right? And it could be some mundane inquiry, right? They could trying to find out about some project or what have you. And they don't get it. The council member goes for a second time directly to that staff member. They don't get the information. They cannot hold that member, that staff member accountable. They can hold me accountable. But in the meantime, I didn't even know that there was an issue. There was a question. There was something that the council member wanted or information that the council member wanted. So for accountability's sake, I believe that this language here is meant to be, significant inquiries and significant investigations whereby the entire council votes to think, through resolution, votes to make an inquiry, make an investigation, and then that allows the members of the council to go and do their due diligence with staff members.
Through the chair, may I ask a question of
Sure, absolutely.
Member Rano? The reason for that language was based on a motion that you made, according to what I'm reading here in the background, that was to remove that language. Based on the explanation that the manager has given, does that satisfy you? Or do you still believe that it should be removed?
No, I still believe that it should be removed, and I think that any inquiry should be made by any council member to any staff member at any point. It's not about accountability. It's not about holding anyone accountable. Ultimately, the manager is the one that can hold staff accountable if staff has done something wrong. However, in my tenure as a council member, sometimes I had difficulty acquiring information because when I sat on the dais, I was no longer a citizen of the town, and I could no longer just walk into the building department and say, how does my neighbor apply for a fence permit? I couldn't do those things. So to me, anything that hinders the possibility of a council member asking a question, it's not directing staff, it's not requesting for any special reports or projects or anything like that, but asking a general question. Hey, by the way, the construction on 82nd Avenue, do you know when they're going to start milling the street? There's no reason why a council member cannot ask those questions, because we are the direct contact to the constituents. The council members, I say we, I still feel like I sit up here, but council members are the direct contact to the constituency, and they should not lose the right to communicate with staff, not direct, but communicate with staff and ask any question at any point to anyone that's walking through the hallway. I feel like that hindered a lot of the work that had to be done, or maybe created an unnecessary, issue where the manager had to know every single question that was being asked. It makes it very difficult to work in that manner. So that's why, for me, at least in my experience, and during my tenure, we had a procedure where anything that I needed to ask any person, any staff member, was copied to the manager as well, right? Like, I would email a staff member and copy the manager in my email, and that was sufficient. But I did not want to lose my right as a taxpayer. Anyone that sits on the dais is a taxpayer. So if I have an issue with anything in my home, I should be able to walk into any department and ask a question like anyone else. And I felt like I had lost that right because of language in the charter that was intended for the council members not to direct staff, but not to create an inability to ask a question. So that was my reasoning for that request. And I stand by it because I lived it. And I do think that it's very important. And it wasn't the case with this town manager.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the case.
I was going to say, because I'm available 24/7, and
No.
there's no way you could have gotten faster information even
No.
if you asked the person directly.
We never had an issue where I couldn't communicate with him or anything of that sort, nor did I ever have that issue with a previous town manager. But just in the same fashion that a council member can go rogue, a town manager can go rogue. And you do not want a town manager to alienate information from the council by having a provision in the town charter that prevents council members from having access to staff. So it can go either way. I just feel like it's sufficient to say that there can be no direction, but to not be able to inquire, I think, just takes it a step too far.
No, I appreciate that. And what I'm going to ask is, I'm going to ask the town manager if you could give a quick response to that as well, or give some more background information. But right before you do that, I would like the town attorney, if you can, while he's responding, if you can take a look at some of the issues that she's addressed. I don't know how quickly, if maybe you could try to at least see what do other municipalities are doing in that context. Because look, I see how that could, she could be, someone could interpret as she can even request a permit from someone from the town and deal with it because she's doing it in her own individual capacity versus her official capacity. And maybe it's something language that we have to put in here that they can't contact them in their official capacity to give that ability to where she can, hey, look, I'm putting up pavers out in front of my house. I should be able to go and find out with the building department, hey, look, where am I with this? But I do want to hear from also the town manager on the operational side of this, and give some time to the town attorney to take a look at these.
Yeah, obviously, never, ever did I ever expect 100%, I agree that each and every one of the elected members of the council are still residents of this town, right? And they have their own individual, as residents, their own individual inquiries about their own property and so forth. But once it became that the member of the council is acting as a representative of the town and trying to solve a problem for a resident and so forth. And listen, it's not only for accountability for the town manager, right? It's also for the staff member. The staff members, you can't imagine the uncertainty and the feel of intimidation, even if it's unintentional, right? Just by virtue of the fact that it's an elected member of the council, these staff members, high and low, from highest portions of our staff, even to entry-level staff members, they get concerned, they get intimidated when they are, not for casual conversations, but for significant inquiries, questions, anything dealing with town-related issues, they get anxious. And I'd rather be the buffer for them. And I think that Councilmember Ruano will agree with this, and former Vice Mayor Tony Fernandez, I'm sure, will too. The fact that things went through me, man, that never caused any delay. She, as well as any other elected officials, whether it's people who like me or didn't like me, I treat them all the same. Doesn't matter. I don't care. I serve the council, at their pleasure, at their will, and I get them information on the moment. And in fact, I think that when it comes from me, I make sure that they get the information sooner better than later, because I want them to be able to serve our residents. And I know that they're the conduit for that. And I want to make sure that they're being responsive to their constituents, which are my constituents and our constituents. So I make sure that they get that information as soon as possible.
Yeah. No, and look, I don't think this is it definitely didn't sound like anything was personal on you, and I understand your response. But what I think of is when none of us are here, when it's different town manager, different council members that are going to be sitting at this dais, how they're going to interact, because it's going to be at least 10 years before it's going to get reconsidered, substantively. And so, I'd like to, to see kind of, because I could see those issues, or even someone taking a very strict reading of this, while your expectation is like, no, that they can, that the council member can go ahead and, say, hey, look, it's your own house that you're dealing with. It's not in your official capacity, but someone can turn around and be like, no, this is not what the charter says. The charter specifically says a council member, it doesn't exclude their personal capacity or their own personal issues. And they may try to take a hard line on it, and it can turn into a suit or a big battle unnecessarily. So if we can have better language, I think it'd be good for us.
100%, and I agree. And I could tell you that I was, unfortunately, and it didn't happen often, thank God, but unfortunately, once or twice in the 7+ years that I've been here, I've had to use this because there were nefarious intent. There were instances, thankfully not many, that elected officials that wanted to, I guess for lack of a better term, stir the pot and were violating this. And I had to invoke this, and unfortunately I had to use the shotgun approach and reassert this language to the entire council, because I didn't want it to be targeted. But it was useful in at least once or twice throughout the last 7+ years.
Yeah, I agree. Any commissioners, you guys have any thoughts? Yes, Commissioner Ruano.
Just as a final thought, the language reads that in accordance with a resolution. So that would mean that if a council member wants to make an inquiry to a staff member, there has to be a resolution. I just find that to be absurd. It's just, to me, it seems too much. Anything that's voted on as a body and is approved as a body is sufficient to allow a council member to inquire about any given thing. And yes, during the years that I served, there were instances where this particular item was weaponized for whatever reason, through misunderstandings or whatnot. But it's something that I feel really, like you said, this is our only chance in the next 10 years to make this adjustment. So I'd love to hear the council members' perspective on it. I guess maybe we can reach out to council members before obviously before we do anything with this, but just to hear their perspective of how the work flows and whether it's something that they feel, the members that are on the council now, if it's something that they feel could make their job a little bit easier, because the manager has a job, but the council members have a job as well. The mayor has a job as well. So I feel that it's something incredibly important because we won't be able to touch it for another 10 years.
Sure. J.C. Fernandez, the town attorney, a few more minutes.
Thank you, thank you. So no, I do think specifically the language here that says in accordance with the resolution adopted is a little bit overbearing. I haven't had necessarily an issue with communicating with the manager. Sometimes without realizing or without remembering, I will reach out to an employee regarding, let's say now they were doing the drainage project in front of my house. I reached out to Omar, and then he has to remind me that it has to go through the manager. But the answers do come once I reach out, and the communication has been good. So I haven't been affected necessarily negatively, but specifically to what this phrase reads, I do think it's a little bit overbearing. I think that is a little bit too much. But aside from that, I would say that the communication, I haven't had any negative communication with trying to get answers from staff through the manager.
So I looked at, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, if I may. So I took a look at a few cities that would be like more or less like, around the same time of incorporation as Miami Lakes. The first one, Doral, says that except for purpose of inquiries and investigations made in good faith, the council or its members shall deal with the officers and employees of the city, of course, under the direction and supervision of the manager, solely through the manager. So that one removes the resolution. Miami Gardens, though, has a resolution, except for the purpose of inquiries and investigation made in good faith and in accordance with the resolution adopted by the council. The city of Cutler Bay also does, except for purpose of inquiries and investigation made in good faith and in accordance with the resolution. City of Pinecrest also has the same language of resolution. City of Palmetto Bay does not have a resolution. Council members may make informal inquiries of employees, but no council member shall give orders publicly or privately to employees. And also similarly, Aventura, except for purpose of inquiries made, investigations made in good faith, the commission or its members shall deal with city officers. So it doesn't have the resolution language. So it's a mixed bag of cities that have very similar charters to ours, some with the resolution language, some without.
Do any of them, I know you just went through them pretty quickly, but did you see anything with regards to removing any kind of individual capacity? Like making explicit that in an individual capacity, the council members can have those discussions?
Well, they're all pretty similar in the sense that I'll go backwards now from Aventura.
Sure.
Except for the purpose of inquiries, investigations made in good faith, the commission or its members shall deal with city officials who are subject. So this one removes the resolution, just allows it, right? So we'll go backwards. Palmetto Bay also removes it. Pinecrest, so except for purpose of inquiries, investigations made in good faith in accordance with a resolution adopted by the council or any of its individuals, members shall deal with village officers and employees who are subject to direction and supervision of the manager solely through the manager. So that one's very similar to ours. Is that the?
Well,
your
it was
question?
more of, kind of separating out between the official business aspect versus individual. Because the way this language, I read it here, someone could, wants to have a heavy fist, say, yeah, you're calling about something that you're dealing with yourself that is not necessarily in your position as a council member. Someone could say, hey, look, you can't even talk to someone over at the town because this says a council member. You are officially a council member. You're elected. You can't talk to anybody that is at the staff level, period. With that, unless you're going through the town manager.
Well, Miami Gardens is identical to ours in that sense. It says, except for purpose of inquiries, investigations made in good faith and in accordance with the resolution adopted by the council and any of its individual members. So that's the word that you're looking for, the individual member.
Well, not necessarily individual member, but their individual capacity versus their official capacity in communication.
Well, this one doesn't say anything about official, right? This one doesn't say anything about official capacity,
I
individual
was just thinking if
capacity.
you saw anything
That's,
that
I guess,
distinguished.
it does not, no.
No.
Mr.
No.
Chair, may I ask a question?
Mr. Vice Chair, first.
Because, Mr. Attorney, currently there is a resolution. I mean, I'm looking at the current language and it references a resolution adopted by the council. What does that resolution say? Can we pull that up?
So, yeah,
Because
it
maybe
was
the
just,
resolution carves out those issues that were.
so So that's resolution 22-1823. And again, remember, resolution is just a, how can you say this? You know this more than.
It's the intent of the council at the time.
At the
but-
time,
but
right.
That's
So
what you have.
the intent of the council in the time of 2022 was that it says, I'll just read section 2, authority to perform good faith investigations pursuant to Charter 4.2B for the purpose of carrying out and exercising their legislative and executive duties. The council and the town manager shall have the continual authority to conduct good faith investigations and inquiries of the town staff. In the town mayor, I'm sorry, shall have the continuing authority to conduct good faith investigations and inquire of the town staff. The town council and the town mayor shall be prohibited from ordering or providing any instruction to town staff as provided in the town charter. A violation of this provision of the town charter may result in violations or removal from office. So,
All right, so it clarifies that in their official capacity as an elected official, they
Right.
can't. But if Commissioner Fernandez needs to pull a permit because he's changing the roof in his home, he can do that, right? Because that's not in
Correct.
his official capacity as an elected official. So that concern, I
But
think,
that's
is
then for a
addressed there.
resolution.
that was for the resolution. However, we have now the opportunity to brush this up and
Incorporate what's in the
incorporate some of that.
resolution.
Yes.
I think this original language, which I was a part of, I think the intent was for it to be a significant event. Like, for instance, there's allegations that the manager is doing ABC. And the council says, we need to inquire, we need to find out what's going on, whether the manager or something going on in the staff, that they're abusing overtime or whatever. That the council will say, I'm going to pass a motion or a resolution saying, we're going to conduct an investigation as to these allegations that are out in the media or out in the public, and we want to conduct an investigation. I think that was the intent of the original language, for it to be something significant, not about, a drainage project.
What I'd like to see is, obviously, it's not going to be, I don't think we're going to necessarily have language for today, but I think it'd probably be drafting two different types of languages and more in line with what you read, from what I heard you read from the resolution, and have it more in line with that. And so that way that'll become, and have a version that includes the language, and then a version that obviously has excluded this language that we've been talking about. I would also ask that, the language with regards to solely through the town manager, I'd put in there or their designee in the event that the town manager is out. You don't want to get into a situation where, he's on vacation or he's out of the
Yeah, I
country
always
or-
designate somebody to be the acting town
but I'm
manager,
saying
even
just
if
have-
I'm out for a day, because I'm going to, I'm going to be out.
Correct.
Then, and I always put in my designation that they have the full authority of the office of the town
Yeah,
manager.
town
Yeah, so
that'll-
whoever's acting in my place has complete and full authority.
But I see what you're saying. Since it's charter language, it says specifically the town manager, just a
Yeah.
new town manager or designee.
No, 100%. I think that the language could be massaged to find that happy medium for.
Because if you
all-
strictly construe it, then that would mean that you don't have the authority to delegate.
To the designate, yeah. And that's what I would ask.
But there is in a different part of the charter, this
Allows
does
them to
talk about me designating somebody to act in my behalf.
To act on your behalf.
But, so,
Yeah.
yeah, but I agree. It's better stated correctly.
Trying to give you more power here. Directly in the chalk. I'm giving you more power to distribute your power.
I'll work on that and
Sure.
we'll bring that back.
Yeah. And
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Morano, do you think that'll cover what you're with at least one of the drafts?
We can take a look at them. I think that in hearing it over and over and over again, I think that I guess the trick of it is where it talks about questions that are being made in good faith. What is the bar for a good faith question? Who determines that, and when does that line get crossed, right? So maybe those are the issues that we've had, right? Because it says that you can make any kind of inquiry in good faith. So, a phone call to whatever Public Works Department to find out when are they going to finish my road is in good faith and should not have to go through the town manager. So maybe that's where I guess the trick is, that even though it says in good faith, there's nothing that allows the council member to, I guess, exercise that. And I don't know if that's fixable, right? Because I've seen that all the other charters, there may not be any other way to word it, but maybe if
Yeah.
you can
Well,
kind of think of something that,
Yeah, I think what you get into is it's a slippery slope unless you're going to have a very hard line. or if you're going to be a little bit more on the gray side, it's always going to be a slippery slope.
That's why, to
But-
me, the hard line is not giving direction or not telling a staff member what to do.
And that's
Any
consistent in,
question or any inquiry, to me, is in good faith, because it's just an inquiry. There's,
Yeah.
there's nothing, everything here is public record. Any member of the public can come in and walk into any department and ask any question. So the council member should not be limited in that capacity, because it's the way that it is.
And I think that's why I want both versions with and without the type of language. And I think, Town Attorney, did you have anything?
no, what I was going to say is, and I'm sorry for interrupting you, is that what you just said is consistent throughout all of the samples that I just saw, which are pretty much all the cities that are more or less incorporated on the same time that we did, that there's kind of a gray area as far as, do you need a resolution to talk or to give instruction or to ask an inquiry or not? But as far as giving direction, there's a hard line there that you cannot. There's that separation between staff
Yeah.
and the council.
And that's definitely missing, or it's absent from our current version. Yeah, so if we could just incorporate something like that, and we can get some language that we can take a look at.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. Is there any other questions on this item 6? Seeing none, let's go to item 7.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this next item is with regards to the council seat reduction. And this is in line with what you've requested to reduce the town council from 7 to 5. And there's a couple of suggested models. One is the attrition model, and the other one is the model of limiting the seats. I think that's the model that you were advocating, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, through attrition, with one seat having that 2-year, well announced in advance, that 2-year term instead of a 4-year term. So it could cut off, and you never have that position where you have an even number of elected officials.
Well, I don't think that's the attrition model. That's the abolition model, the second version. The attrition model, everybody serves out their term, and when their term ends, then it's going to be gone.
Right. And that's where I think that's where you end up with the difficulty of having a
An even
2-year
number.
period where you're going to have a even number of council members,
Correct.
which I wouldn't recommend. From my experience that I've seen, I wouldn't recommend having that, because it could be problematic.
Okay. All right. Anyone have any, if you guys have taken a look at the two different models of the language, commissioners, any discussion? I know there's been a lot of discussions and debates, and, we've had public comment on this aspect. And look, if someone wants to make a motion today, we can make the motion today. If you guys want to think about it and a little bit more and bring this up at the next meeting, I'm happy to do that as well. But if there's any discussion you guys want to have, comments?
I'll just put on the record that I disagree with reducing the council to 5. So none of the languages are going to work for me, because I truly believe that we should keep our council as it is.
Okay.
And once again, I agree with Mr. Juan on the,
He agrees with Commissioner Ruano, once again.
Through the chair,
Yes, Councilman Fernandez.
I've actually have pondered it, and I'm on the fence. I'm leaning towards. I know that I'm not a voting member, but I'm not sure if what I'm afraid is that in the future, and this is no jab at our present mayor, but I'm afraid that if he lined up with two other members, that he can have control of what the agenda would move forward with. So I'm just saying, I have thought of it, I know that it was I brought it up, but I'm leaning towards the other way. I'm not suggesting that you guys vote again, but I just wanted for the record that's the way I'm feeling.
All right. Anyone else have any other comments they'd like to add for today? So I'll say I'm definitely going to look into the languages. I think having the opportunity for the town to make a vote on it, I think, is because I've heard both sides, and I agree. Look, I think there's strong arguments either way, and I'm hearing, at least from what I'm hearing, it's a split, and so what I'd like, I'm going to be at this point, at least, to be proposing that we include the language, Now, whether it passes or it doesn't pass, that's going to be up to the town. But I've heard enough from a variety of people where I think it's important to at least give them the opportunity to see what the town really feels about it. There's us here, and if it dies, it dies, and if it passes, it passes. And hearing from the different folks. I think it's just figuring out what the language is going to be, and maybe that'll influence people to say, yes, I want to do it because I think it's great, or no, I don't want to do it because I see the effects. I like where we are right now, and I don't want to change it. And let me tell you, this is what I truly feel about all of the questions that we have. While we're proposing them, it's only us that are sitting up here at this dais right now that are making this decision. It's really ultimately what our townsfolk really want to hear. What is it that they want for our community for the next 10 years? So, while I may vote in favor of something, it's not necessarily, hey, look, that's my position when I go to vote at the ballot box. It may be I want to give the opportunity because there's enough people that are bringing this issue up. There's us that have been tasked with representing each of, as being appointees, but representing our townsfolk as to, hey, look, these are the issues that we have been thinking about. So just because we're putting up something, it doesn't mean that I don't want anybody in the town that's maybe even listening thinking that simply because we vote in favor of something, it's a position that we're going to necessarily, when we're in the privacy of the ballot box, of taking that position. But rather, it's giving the opportunity. It's figuring out, look, does the town like it or does the town not want it? That's a great thing that we have with this Charter Revision Commission aspect, because in addition, the council members may come up with their own that they're going to add in as questions. There may be some things that maybe even conflict or give other options as to how we move forward. So, I still feel that we should have some type of language in there and put it up to the voters, because I think it's clearly, it's something that's there. As we've seen, I think I've heard more debate from amongst us, but also from those that have come up and spoken during public comment, has been on this issue as to whether or not we're going to reduce it from 7 down to 5. All right. So what I would ask, just like I've asked in other ones, I'm going to be reviewing some of the sample languages. I think that we have 2 good ones here, maybe even some modifications of it, but please, to the extent that you guys have any that you want for this or any other items for the next meeting, please submit them in advance to the clerk so that way she can share it with all of us. So that way, one, we can get it on the agenda specifically, but secondarily, so that way we can, so each of the council members have time to take a look at it in advance, so we can do it. And remember, our next meeting is going to be next week. So, all right. Anything else on item 7? All right, let's go to item 8.
Item 8, Mr. Chair, is a resign to run. As explained, Section 99.12 of Florida statutes governs the resign to run requirement. Basically, any person who's elected for a municipal officer and seeks to qualify for another public office, doesn't matter what it is, has to resign from the current office prior to qualifying for the other office, especially if the 2 offices, in the case of the 2 offices, would overlap. The resignation is effective upon the date the person qualifies for the other office, not on the date the letter is submitted. And that's an important point. The resignation letter may be submitted in advance with a future effective date tied to that qualification. Once the resignation is submitted, it becomes irrevocable. That's how Florida law sees it. So the idea, I believe, was, and I think from what I remember, is the issue of the resign to run, the vacancy, and to figure out how it can be concurrent so that the person, if they did resign to run, there could be an election for that seat at the next regular election, from what I understand, is what you were looking for.
Yeah. And I just want to kind of, not correct, but just be clear that the resignation is effective upon the date the person qualifies for the other office, right? So actually the date that they would assume the other office, not qualifies.
Correct.
for-
You're right. You're right.
Right.
You're correct.
But the qualification date, once they qualify, then it becomes irrevocable.
Correct.
That's the effective date of the irrevocability,
Correct.
irrevocableness.
They both sound pretty.
All right. Any discussion, questions?
And there is proposed language there. I'll read it into the record. That says, in the event of vacancy of the office of the mayor or council member arises from a resignation submitted pursuant to section 99.012 Florida statutes resigned to run, the vacancy shall be filled by special election to be held concurrent with the next regularly scheduled general election of the town, provided that the vacancy occurs no later than 90 days prior to the qualifying period of such election. The town clerk shall, upon receipt of the resigned to run resignation, immediately notify the Miami-Dade County Supervisor of Elections and open a qualifying period for candidates to qualify for the vacated seat. If vacancy occurs within 90 days of the qualifying period, the vacancy shall be filled prior to section 2.5 C1.
What is currently the qualifying period, Madam Clerk?
Madam Clerk?
Qualifying starts the last week of July, first week of August. Starts on a Monday, last Monday of July, and it goes straight for 7 days because it finishes the following week, first week of August, on a Wednesday at noon.
Okay, and Mr. Tonington, why did you put the 90 days? Is that something statutorily, or is that just a number that you placed there for now? That you have to do it 90 days prior to?
Sorry, that's the number that I placed there for now. That's why it's within box.
Okay, but we could do shorter than 90 days.
Yes.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking, because 90 days prior to the November election would be right at the very beginning of August. If I'm
Okay.
doing my calculations in my head right.
Sure.
So,
Shorter.
and then you'd be forcing a potential runoff situation if there's more than two candidates, because you wouldn't be able to make it to the primary.
Yep.
The August date.
We can propose a shorter date.
Yeah.
timeframe.
But in any event, it doesn't seem, even with the current qualifying periods, if someone were to go to run, they wouldn't be able to hit that primary date. Correct? If they file resign to run at the end of July,
Mm-hmm.
right before qualifying, they wouldn't be able to hit the August 18th.
Well, if they did,
We wouldn't be able to open it up and have, if there was like 4 people that wanted to run for it
Mhm.
in that qualifying, you wouldn't be able to hold it on that August date. It would have to roll to the
The November
November
date.
with a potential runoff then
Yeah, we're,
situation.
we're gonna have,
Yes.
we're gonna have to modify our qualifying dates to be more in line with the county, like in June. If you proceed to go with the August, for the races that have 3 or more candidates, we're probably gonna have
Okay.
to, push our qualifying back a month or so.
Okay.
To be in line with the county
So
and
the
state.
qualifying dates are set by the town?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
By
I
ordinance.
understood it was under.
by ordinance.
By ordinance, okay.
yeah. So the qualifying dates is not set in stone. It is fluid.
Okay, just the council then would have to be
Yes.
modified based upon the changes of the charter, obviously,
Correct.
to give it enough time. Okay, so we would be able to make it flexible enough potentially. Okay. And I know that you have here, at least in your proposed language, and I'm not looking to make a motion just yet to review, to move forward on this language. It'd be, they'll be concurrent with the next regularly scheduled general election. Would that include a primary election as well? in the
Well,
event?
yeah, again, when it says general election of the town, it's our election. So it's not the general election, it's our general election for municipal.
Okay, so okay, got it. So it's not referring to the November.
It's not referring to the elections department general election. It's referring to the town's general election.
Got it. All right, any further discussions or questions? All right,
And Mr. Chair, again,
Yes.
this will be included in the red line version that we discuss at the next meeting. If you all want me to continue working on it.
give me 1 second, let me read through it. Right.
This proposed language, it is complicated. It's complicated when we're reading it. if you were a voter looking at it, it's complex. If there would be a way to fine tune it further.
Simplify it. We can,
I mean, I don't know that you can't, but when.
Morales is up to the task.
When we're talking about it and it's complicated, the average person going to.
to a non-lawyer.
I love you
If
guys.
I
but-
may,
We'll work on wordsmithing it.
yeah, I remember last time the charter review, remember that they did some instructions. There was like some, I remember the Department of Claricel de Cárdenas, the communications, trying to provide some educational information. I remember that vividly. We did like a pamphlet. It's costly. It was costly, but it was trying to help the residents to inform them what it meant. Because the language, yes, not a lay person will not, will be lost with this. It is very technical, but we can do that.
Every question can't be one line or two necessarily, but this is one where the majority of people are going to go, what? I don't know how to answer this question effectively.
No, I agree.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I know that 10 years ago, the town did develop a voter's guide, right? So you took every question, you put the actual ballot question, and then you did a very expansive explanation of what dissected really what the question was.
In English and in Spanish.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I do have a question to the town attorney because I'm still a little confused. Okay, so let me throw out a hypothetical here. So it's the last day of qualifying, right? Someone who is a current council person now says he's going to run for mayor, right? So it's the last day of qualifying. So when they qualify, clerk, they have to submit their letter of resignation that day to you, correct? Effective. So here's where I get confused. Because the state law allows the effective date to be up to election day, correct?
Actually, I think it's up to the day that they take office.
Up to the day that
They
you
take
take
office.
office?
The day before, right?
Okay. So help me out. What day would that be for our mayors? That would be November. When do they take office for mayor here?
Well, it depends.
They
Well-
take office after the elections have been certified.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like
Per-
December.
And that brings another point that, well,
Yeah, that's another question that's
Can
being
I finish my,
debated here.
can I finish my question then? So here's what's throwing me off is the 90 days, because the question right now says that there'll be a special election provided that the vacancy occurs no later than 90 days prior to the qualifying period for such election. But that the election, provided that the vacancy occurs no later than, but the vacancy doesn't occur in that case, in that hypothetical, until the day of the swearing in, which is, I don't know, December 1 or whatever date.
Well, I think it definitely can be better worded. I think the intent is that the
Yeah.
vacancy is created
by the letter of resignation.
by the letter of resignation
Yeah.
because you no longer
Okay.
are entitled to this. You won't
It's
be on the
irrevocable.
seat.
Right, so what's the
But
90-day reference? Like, why is that?
No, the 90 days is just boxed in
It's
as a
placeholder.
placeholder.
And so you have,
Placeholder.
yeah, and that's why it was my initial question.
Okay.
Because we could shorten it to either 45 days or even 30 days or something like that. He was just using it as a 90 days as a reference.
Okay.
Because you want to have a little bit of time prior to the general election. So be able to have a qualifying period to allow people to qualify and have
Okay.
some sense of
Okay,
campaigning. Yeah.
Yeah.
all right.
So we can change around the 90. That's why I
It's a
don't think
it's
I'm
a
gonna propose
placeholder.
anything for today.
But,
Yeah.
and Lorenzo, let me just ask you this question because
Mhm.
I'm confusing about this as well. So it's election day, right? What was the election day last year? November 8th or whatever, November 5th? Anyway, it's November 5th, 2024. In our case, a sitting councilman was running for mayor, but the councilman's seat, Mayor Dieguez held his seat on November 5th still. So there wasn't a vacancy on election day, because that's always been my understanding that the state doesn't allow an election to take place when someone's you can't have two people in the same seat, right? Okay,
So So there was another question that, so what you have before you are the questions that were left open for us to kind of brush up. There were other items that we kind of agreed on. And what we talked about in order for this to work is that we would adopt a model very similar to like the city of Hialeah or city of Miami, where basically you have an election, but the vacancy is not there because the person doesn't take the seat until January.
Okay. Okay. And that's how those cities do it that you, okay, all right, great.
And what's good is,
Yeah.
and I'll say.
That's how Miami does it.
Okay.
And what I will say is that the better thing of that aspect of it is that when we draft the question, these two items would be falling, I would say is probably have to be within that one question because they're interrelated to each other, correct?
They would have to be together because one, and I guess to Vice Chair Inguanzo's point, that's your confusion, right? Because one would not work without the other. If we didn't, yeah.
Right, yeah. Okay, but it's comforting to know that there are other cities that have the, great, because I'm 100% supportive of this. This
Yeah,
is-
Miami does.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
Great.
Vice Chairman, we also need to be innovative and be the forefront of some
Absolutely.
type of things.
Let's do it.
Just not on this one.
So-
other cities have tried it.
Yes.
I'm just going to throw this out there because we want to be innovative. And somebody on this stage is going to kill me. When I was reading and researching about the city clerks, the town clerks, and whether they're appointed, I ran into one city, city of North Miami elects their city clerks. I think that might be a great idea. No, I'm kidding.
All right. So, sorry, we have not reopened public comment, sir. All right.
So we'll continue wordsmithing this and bring it back.
Yes, yeah, I think addressing that vacancy issue, just the wording in the vacancy and maybe some other type of word, or as well as maybe even looking at a shorter period. I would definitely think of a little bit of shorter period of time. So that way we're not running into all of a sudden having to have a qualifying period all the way in May. So that way we can hit the primary. Yeah. If we're looking at prior, 90 days prior to August, you're looking already at the very beginning of June to be able to file.
Okay.
Or no, May. May, yeah, beginning of May, sorry. So, yeah, so if we could take a look at that, I think it'll be a good to make it clearer about that resign to run vacancies that are created at that time.
So the very last one, item number 9, is really, it's an omnibus housekeeping, and it's just for issues that deal with Scrivener's errors, sufficiency, so that we can just clean up the charter. I'm not sure that I think all of you would be in agreement on this one.
Correct.
Assuming.
A Scrivener's error is an unintentional error that is made.
Or comma.
Correct, yeah. Scriveners, lawyers, we like to come up with very big words, or at least we pull big words that are already out there and just utilize them when nobody has any other use for them. Yes. It was back in the days when lawyers charged per each time that they had to type on a typewriter. Because you had to rewrite the entire document.
There were actually positions in the old days before they had copying that were called scriveners. They would, when you had to make a copy of a document, there'd be people in offices that they were scribed. They would actually, there was a novel called Bartleby the Scrivener that was about some guy that was his job.
All right. Any other questions on item 9? All right. Now we have gone through the town attorney's report. Thank you very much, everyone. And, we look forward to hearing, a follow-up for the next week's meeting onto these issues, as well as proposing some more of the hard language that we can go forward and looking at all the different motions
Certainly.
that happened. All right. We're going to go to item 8, new business. There was 2 items here. Commissioner Bennett had proposed each of them. He's not here to discuss them. I don't know if we want, if someone wants to, is any of the other commissioners, I don't know if you guys have some thoughts on them. Mr. Town Attorney, any recommendations on how to handle, since it is Commissioner Bennett, that we just,
I mean, they made it to the agenda, so I would defer them to the next meeting.
I'll make a motion to defer.
Does deferral require a motion or?
It does require a motion and
I'll
a
make
second.
a
and we'll
motion to
vote.
defer.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Ruano. All right, any discussion on the deferral? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. These items will be deferred to our next meeting date. With that is, Madam Clerk, when, just for the matter of the record, when is our next meeting? The actual date is the 20.
Yes, April 29th, 6:30 PM.
6:30. It's a week out from, no, it's less than a week out. It's next Wednesday.
Right.
Just a recollection to everybody. Just a reminder is, we'll hear back from the town attorney on these items that he had here, but I believe if we can also have proposed language for any other items, Mr. Town Attorney, that we can start getting hard considerations, to the extent that you can have some of these questions that we've already voted on.
Certainly.
We can begin that process, because I think we're getting into that in that section. And ask the commissioners if you guys, any of these items here that, that there were recommendations of language that we didn't formalize today. If you have anything, please submit them in advance, so that way they can be shared over with the town clerk, so that way we can all take a look at it and we can have a very meaningful conversations at our next meeting. Please do so. And if there's anything else in the charter that you want to have reviewed, please also bring that up at that time. So we can really move forward with wrapping this up. Let's not, to the extent possible, let's not get too much more into brand new things that we haven't discussed, but I'm not going to say don't, because as we're looking at, especially with all the new changes that we're proposing, now we're starting to see how it's all gelling together. And also, if Mr. Town Attorney, if we can get that red line, I think, or I don't know if you're going to be work with the town clerk to be able to get kind of a red line draft of at least what's already been voted on.
Sure.
So we can start sharing it, with all the edits, obviously the Scrivener's errors and everything like that.
Certainly.
To the extent that we can get that out to everyone. All right.
I'd like to ask a personal privilege.
Sure,
Chair.
absolutely.
At the next meeting, I'm going to be in Tampa. If it's okay with all of you, if I may appear via Zoom.
I have no objection to that.
Thank you.
I'm having knee surgery the day before, so there's a 50-50 chance that I'll appear via Zoom. I'm going to appear, I'll be here no matter what, but I'll probably be maybe via Zoom. If I feel able to, I'll be here with my walker, as
Unacceptable.
long as nobody makes fun of me.
Unacceptable. We want you here in person. No, absolutely. Please, obviously wishing you the best for the surgery on Tuesday, and looking forward to seeing everyone there. And one last thing, I want to just take a point of personal privilege. While I don't know him personally, is looking forward to, we got the NFL draft and our hometown hero, Mr. Fernando Mendoza. Let's fingers crossed for his draft motion. Now, I don't know him personally, but his story is great. And let's see what's going forward. With that, we stand adjourned. Look at that, under 2 hours.